I'm the kind of person, I like to make big, grandiose announcements. So here's my big grandiose announcement. Critical thinking is the most important thing in your lives from this point forward. How's that for a grand statement? The number one thing intellectually for the rest of your lives is critical thinking. So what you want to think about as we examine critical thinking is what role is this going to play? I'm putting it on the table, most important thing in your lives. You may come up with a rationale for disagreeing with me, and we can talk about that if you do. So, big picture. What is critical thinking? What is it to you?
I think to me, like the ability to analyze each and every thing, each and every aspect of things that are going on in your life, so you get a better understanding of things.
That's great. Yes. To analyze.
Being able to make choices based off of, well, your personal preface and, outcomes, and being able to see what might happen when you make a certain choice.
Okay. Being able to look at different things, analyze them, and then look into the future. Good. Very good.
I think a part of it is like being able to think on your feet when there's not a lot of time to make a decision or not a lot of time to do something. You got to figure something out, a way to do it.
Okay. Great. Very good. So, this class is small but mighty. By far the best answers that I've received. In fact, some classes would just sit there and look at me and not even say a word. So, okay, we'll just sit here in awkward silence for the next 55 minutes. Great. These are all on the line of what critical thinking is. This is very good. I really appreciate that. I've put together some ideas of what I think, how ways you might look at critical thinking. And I don't know how many of you cooks saw this. Have you ever tried to make chili before? Anybody in here made chili?
Just the other day, I did it with a friend of mine.
You made it with a friend of yours?
Yeah,
Okay,
we
so
kind of built it from scratch. It's fun.
you build it from scratch, no recipe?
Like no recipe.
Great. So what makes a good chili? We've all had chili, right? All had chili before? What makes for a good chili?
Well, it has to have a little bit of a spice to it, but not like that you bite into it and it's like you just bit into a hot wing.
Okay.
But
Spice. Good.
And I think it's got it can't just be like an empty bowl of stuff. It's got to have content to it. Like,
Okay.
it's got to have some good content, but also
A density.
yeah, that's the word I was looking for. Thanks. And with the spice, there also I think it has to be a little sweet.
Okay.
That rather than just being all spice and all cake. I think it's got to have something
Interesting.
other to taste for.
Okay. Sweet. What else? What else makes for a good chili? We've got spice, we've got density, we've got a contrasting sweetness.
I guess like the proper balance between like meat and some
Okay.
people use like meat and beans.
Meat, beans, right? You have to have your basic things. Think of chili as an analogy for critical thinking. Because we can know a lot about beans, but beans by themselves, pretty bland. We can know a lot about meat, but if we wanted meat, we'd have a hamburger. The value of a good chili is you take all these things and put them together, and when that happens, a nice thing, a yummy chili comes together out of all these conglomerate of odd, like, hey, let's throw this in. Even some sweetness, let's throw some sugar in there, see what happens. Dump a beer in there, let's see what happens. That's the way critical thinking develops. You're taking all these different ideas, putting them in there, and coming up with something new. Beans by themselves? No thanks. Beans in chili? Hell yeah. Because it's the spices, and it's the contrasting, it's the density, and it's the fact that it makes you feel good on a cool day to have chili. So you're having this existential thing that's going on. So critical thinking is like that. It's not just knowing about a thing, okay? Even if you're a cardiologist and you know so much about the heart, think about all the other things that you have to understand. When somebody comes in, they've had a heart attack. You have to know all these other things. You can know everything about the heart. You can have held a heart in your hands. You could have massaged a heart, bring somebody back to life. Imagine, you brought somebody back to life. But there are always going to be cases in which something else, okay? So somebody's X disease triggered this thing that triggered this thing that triggered a heart attack. Or somebody was just born with something and it's a 1 in a million. They have a heart attack. How do you deduce all this? That's the value of critical thinking. And you can apply this in your professional life. Think about this. You can apply it to your personal life. Because the ability to think through these things quickly, you take all these disparate notions, put them in your pot, and come up with the best thinking that you can do, it makes you a better person. You can be a better friend, a better relative, a better significant other. Okay? That's important to me because my wife's super smart. And so I can't outthink her. And I can't just react either. But don't we all just react?
No.
You don't just react?
No, because according to sociology, the concept of life is that we're all on a stage or the dramaturgical analysis in which we're acting and reacting to those around us.
Okay. But sometimes you just react. Don't you think? Okay. You and I are in a bar. I bump into you and I spill a beer on you. What do? What are your range of options?
Well, I could scream at you.
Okay, you could scream at me. Would that be critical thinking?
No.
What would that be?
That'd be just anger.
Anger. Gut reaction. Don't we all make gut reactions?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So,
especially in road rage.
you're angry at me because I spilled a beer on you. Okay? Maybe somebody else bumped into me and it was like a hit and run. Bang, bang. I'm the victim too. What if you punch me in the face? What if that's your anger? Aren't there some people that get their beer muscles on
Most people.
and that's their reaction?
Well,
Okay.
hopefully that wouldn't happen.
Hopefully that wouldn't happen, but what if I didn't even trigger it? Here's the challenge. What if I did trigger it? I just tripped and you punched me in the face. What if I'm Bruce Lee? What if I've been training in karate for 20 years? Then
I'm in trouble.
then you're in trouble. And that's the reaction. Don't we have friends, relatives, significant others that say things to us and we just bam? Because for some reason, the ability to react quickly and gut reaction, don't we some way value the gut reaction? Like people, they put actually pride in the fact, like, my gut's never wrong. Your gut's usually wrong. Because most people are not developed critical thinking enough. They haven't developed that skill enough where when they're saying they're doing a gut reaction, they've actually contemplated everything. That's rare. So, yeah, I bump into you, whether it's my fault or not, you punch me or yell at me. I could have a gun, I could be Bruce Lee, I could have 10 friends. I could be the smallest of my 10 friends. My next smallest friend is 6'5", 265. Then that's a big problem.
10 versus 1, yeah.
Exactly. So when we value this gut reaction, what we should really do in our daily lives, in our professional lives, is develop our critical thinking skills to the point that we're intellectual ninjas. Somebody approaches me with a problem, I can come up with a quick solution because I'm really good at filtering all these different things. Everything I've ever learned in my life, every kind of, and you know what? And I'm open to things that I don't even naturally believe. So, and I'm not judging. I'm just trying to come up with the best answer. So that's part of critical thinking and the value that it can have in a person's life. So these are just some ideas about what critical thinking is. And if you've listened, so here, communicate effectively with others to solve complex problems. Maybe me spilling a beer on you is not that complex in our overall scheme of life, but maybe in the moment it is. I should have communicated effectively. How would I have done that? Maybe thinking open-mindedly, or maybe you should have thought open-mindedly.
Yeah.
That somebody could have bumped into me, or there could have, what if we were in California and there were a minor earthquake and I spilled my beer on you? You're still mad, but there are other rationale for it. Gather and assess relevant information. Okay? So we all know. So does anybody know, tell me if you, do you think you know somebody in your life that's not a critical thinker? Who knows somebody that's not a critical thinker? You all know people that aren't critical thinkers. And it's difficult sometimes to interact with them. I know people who are, not incredibly, people who've led successful lives who are not critical thinkers. They are gut reactors, and they think that because they've made enough money or they've been successful enough, that somehow makes their opinions more valuable than other people's opinions. Right? We run into those kind of people. The challenge with that is that, you know, you're running a division of a company. There are $1 million questions that need answered. There are challenges that you face every day, and you don't want to just say, well, my gut, because that lets you fall into a system in which you're just doing what you did yesterday because you think it might work, when there could be all these other factors. Sometimes companies, particularly like a marketing company or an advertising company, they will create kind of fake customers. And they'll actually give the customers names because they really want to understand who they're trying to reach. So they'll create, you know, our primary target with this skin cream is boomer moms with kids. And so they'll create, and then maybe actually draw up what this woman looks like. This is our #1 target. And put a cutout of her, put a picture of her on the wall. How do we live up to her expectations? And so companies will actually build this out. So they're saying, what they're really saying when they do something like that is, let's not fall back on just what we think we know. It's the value of research. We do research to really understand the truth, as much of the truth as we can get. The actual, rather than just what perception might entail. Okay? So I'm going to show you a little film clip of a guy who is an artist that talks about creative thinking and artistry that I think is valuable. Using creative thinking in service to the rest of the world, in particularly to those closest to us. Okay, and that's, you know, a value of critical thinking. You know, we don't just use it to get ahead. You know, it's like Spider-Man. You get the Spidey powers and you use it for the good of humanity, not just personal success. Here are some standards of critical thinking. These are the kind of ideas that people put forth whenever they're strong critical thinkers. So we're clear, we're accurate, we're precise. When you think about the political system today and some of the challenges that the political system faces, for those of you, anybody follow politics much? And so we could certainly look at the political system today and say fairness is not really a very strongly valued idea, because for Congress, when people criticize Congress today, they criticize Congress because the two parties refuse to cooperate and not work together on basically anything, because working with the other side is now equated to weakness. And nobody wants to be weak, because if they're seen as weak, then the 10% of people or 15% of people in their district that actually vote may vote them out for somebody who seems strong. That's kind of illogical. So we see right away, in looking through this list, logic, fairness. These are 2 points that our representatives often are not demonstrating. It wasn't like that 50 years ago. Congressmen and senators on different sides of the aisles may not have cared for each other's views, but they were still willing to work together. Let me show you another little clip. This clip
Foreign TV.
This clip talks about how Google and the internet are changing our way of thinking. And you may have heard of this before. This guy's pretty famous. His name's Nicholas Carr. He's a writer. So what is Nicholas Carr telling us? What's he saying there?
We're making ourselves lazy. Like, I guess unknowingly, with more and more things going on with computers and things, we're making ourselves lazy with being more, or critically thinking in the long run. We're not, by keep doing the same things, we're not practicing how to look at things in different lights or understand in like a deeper depth. Because now all we can do, like now we just, behind our hands, we can technically just scan anything.
Okay.
Rather than trying to dig deeper, such as reading books, we actually have to look to see where things are at.
Mm-hmm. Any other thoughts?
We need to spend more time thinking differently.
Yeah. Both these points are, those are good points. He's saying that we're getting really good at scanning and skimming because the internet's training our brain. And because we're valuing scanning and skimming more, things like deep reading and really reflecting, those are being dropped or reduced greatly. And it has long-range challenges attached to it. Everybody goes through this. I have a hard time reading some of the things that I could have read much easier 20 years ago because I was just a deeper reader then. I didn't ever scan things. And you might think, well, what's the challenge to people being skimming and scanning? I mean, so in one way, skimming and scanning can get more information into our brains and give us more opinions and facts to look at when we're making decisions. The challenge is whenever people are righteous in their belief that their skimming and scanning is so good. I've seen people skim and scan resumes for job placements. That could affect any one of us in this room. I've seen people who were up for major awards, and the person that was going to evaluate them for the award only skimmed the material and didn't get the full perspective of the material, and that person ended up not winning. So there are real ramifications to the fact that we don't think deeply enough. And so I'm fully a proponent of deep thinking and reflection. And reflection is so powerful. Reflection is like yoga. Does anybody in here do yoga? Done it before? Yoga is one of the most amazing things. And I was the biggest opponent of yoga. My wife's been doing yoga for most of her adult life. And I would be, typical guy reaction, oh, yoga, that's crazy. I'll just go jog if I want to work out or lift weights or something. No. Yoga can not only change your body, it can change your mind and change your perspective. And if you use it properly, it's exponentially, a 30-minute yoga workout can do the same thing that 2 hours of lifting weights can do. It's an amazing potential there. And so that expanding the mind and deep thinking, deep reading. I'm not saying that you should do away with the internet because that'd be crazy. The internet's never going to go away. It's going to modify and change, but it's not going away. But neither are books. Neither are long pieces that you need to read and contemplate. And like this class, okay, so Thiel's put its stake in the ground and said, our students are not going to be unable to speak in a professional setting. They're not going to be unable to engage in a conversation. We're going to put a stake in the ground with presentational literacy. I think we should also put a stake in the ground and say our students are going to be deep critical thinkers. Because if the perception of your generation and most people is that you don't have critical thinking skills, that you don't have deep analytical skills, then if you can show that you do, then you win, okay? So it's really valuable as you go into the professional world. My primary thinking about this topic is one sentence. Be critical of your own thinking. Now, we certainly all know people that can't be critical or never critical of their own thinking, and it's to their detriment. Being critical of your own thinking doesn't mean that you have to change the way that you think. You're just being open-minded and open to the fact that there are other possibilities. Okay, so Renell and I could be He could be a nihilist. You know what a nihilist is? Basically, an anarchist is conservative to a nihilist. A nihilist believes in nothing. He could be a nihilist and I could be a Stalinist. Okay, that's about, I think, as far right and left as you can get. Those are as far apart, I believe, as you can get. We could have a conversation. I'm not going to change his mind, and he's not going to change my mind. But in that conversation, if we're both deep critical thinkers, then we can engage in idea sharing, and we can engage without having to change each other's minds. We won't gut react, and I'll just say, oh, you're wrong, and he'll say, oh, no, you're wrong, and we end up in a fist fight or something. So being critical of one's own thinking enables a more open-minded perspective to develop. So that's why I really believe being critical of your own thinking. Has anybody ever heard of this before? Bloom's taxonomy? Don't get scared away by the word taxonomy. Taxonomy is just essentially categorizing. It's a way to categorize. So, bless you. Bloom is a social science researcher who put together this taxonomy. It's just a way to categorize thinking. Okay? So we start, it's usually numbered. So Bloom's taxonomy starts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and you want to go up the scale. The simplest form of thinking is remembering. So you're just recalling information. So we have a conversation in class about how it's overcast today and it's going to be in the 50s, it's a little bit chilly, and then I give you a quiz and I say, discuss, how we characterize the weather. And you'd all write down it's chilly and cloudy and all that. So you can see why that would be the number, that'd be number 1. When you get to the top of the list, it's creating, where you're actually generating new ideas, new products, new ways of thinking. Creation is the highest form, because by creating something, you can imagine you're taking all your life experiences and all you've learned and putting it toward something else. Okay? Everything I've read, everything I've watched, everything I've seen, every person I've talked to is now going into something new. Okay, so Rennell, you do this on a pretty consistent basis.
Yeah.
And I can think because you're an upperclassman, your foundational skills in your major have been built up to the point where you can go on the radio and you're creating something right there. So if you're an employer, and this is a rubber meets the road kind of moment, as you go into your college careers and as you look for internships and jobs or grad schools, what these entities want to see is they want to see that you have these top 3 skills. So your resume, by the time you're looking for internships and jobs, should be a series of bullet points that shows you can create, evaluate, and analyze. And if you do that, your resume will be much better than most people who just list information, maybe a little bit of explaining information. These are the lower form. And then when you prepare for your interview and you do research on the company, oh wow, you're looking at this marketing company or engineering firm that you want to go work at, you've done all the research that you can, you're prepping in your mind questions. And so when they say to you, okay, here's a new product that we have, the first part of your interview is you're going to take a writing test and you're going to write a press release for this new product. Well, you've already thought of that. You've already done your research. You're analyzing the information about the organization and you're creating something new. And so you're demonstrating all the time how these 3 play a major role in your life. That's not saying that these lower order thinking skills aren't important. How many of you are going home or going somewhere over this break? Right? Okay, so a couple of you. For going home, it may be nothing more than remembering. Okay? You got to recall how to get home, or you got to type it into the GPS, or you got to tell somebody to pick you up, or you got to tell somebody where to drop you off. All you need to do is recall information. You don't need to necessarily come up with a new way of getting home. You don't need to invent, I'm going to handstand the whole way home or something. It's good enough to, so this is a fluctuating scale, but in your professional life, and I would say in your personal life, the ability to move up into these levels is very important for your future successes. When I really got interested in critical thinking, part of the rationale for getting interested in it is that I used to teach at one of the largest colleges in America. And they surveyed their freshmen. They gave them an actual critical thinking test. These are all freshmen. They had all taken all the standardized tests. They got into college. They were there. Where do you think they fell in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6? College freshmen. Where do you think they were on this scale? 1 to 6.
3 or 4.
Okay. 3 or 4. Where else? 4? Okay. Where do you think?
I'm gonna go 2.
2? Okay, so we're averaging out here. 3? Okay, so you're at 3. It's a pretty good guess. Yeah, so applying. As a college freshman, you should be able to apply the information that you've learned. What they actually found, at about a 1.2. So college freshmen could basically recall information. They know what color the sky is, they can say that it's cloudy, whatever. And it's not just that school. It's not like that school was the worst school in the country. These kind of results are replicated across society. If you took the 10 biggest companies in America, you would probably have it not much higher than that. Okay? Because we don't teach this enough. When you look at the education system, the high school system today is not developed to create critical thinkers. We're supposed to find out answers. Read this paragraph and tell me which one of these 4 is the answer. That's not critical thinking. Okay, so 1.2. They then retested these groups as seniors. When they graduated, part of their exit exam going out the door was to take this exam again to see where they had gone. Where do you think they're at from 1.2? Where are they when they graduate?
2.
4.5.
2, 4.5. Okay, so we're here as an average.
I'm going to say 5.
5. Okay. So that'd be really good. 2. Okay, so a little lower. We're right around in here. We're right at the border of higher order thinking. They were actually here. They got to understanding. They got to understanding. Now that's a travesty, but it's replicated everywhere. If we did that same study here, I guarantee we'd be in the same ballpark. If we did it down the road, if we did this at Harvard, I think we'd be in the same ballpark.
Really?
I do think that, yes. Because we do not teach this kind of thing in the K-12 setting. We don't value critical thinking. So you want to try an interesting test, set up a Google alert on critical thinking. Every single day you'll get articles from all over the world that mention critical thinking. Read them, and you'll see everything I'm telling you is based on fact and pulled from studies. We don't value higher order thinking, so it doesn't make its way into the standardized management system that dominates K-12 education. So it really gives us even more of an incentive at the college level to teach higher order thinking. Many of you, as you go through your education system, will notice we force this really blatantly. Okay, so if you're a media comm major, we're going to force you to create, because by your junior or senior year, you're going to be creating TV shows, potentially radio shows, you're going to be running cameras, you're going to be creating content, which, then think about it, it rolls right into what you want to do with your life. If you want to be in media, well, you'll have a portfolio of all this stuff that you've created. versus somebody that just learned it in books or never took this opportunity, that could, maybe they've learned, they've read about it, they could recall and understand it, maybe they've had some application, but they actually never made it up into the higher order critical thinking. That's the kind of thing that flows into a portfolio, into a resume, that demonstrates you have these abilities. I'm not going to read the rest of these slides. You can check this out on Moodle when I put it up there. What I did is I took these 4 and then explained them in a little more detail, and then some applications. So it's more examples of these different pieces. So here's creating, and here's some ways that people create. Write a TV show. There's one right there. So here are some characteristics of a person who is a critical thinker. And I drew these from the writings of Richard Paul, who's probably the foremost critical thinking scholar in America. And he's also one of your required readings is a Richard Paul piece. These are characteristics. We can see, do you welcome criticism from other people? This isn't name calling, this isn't screaming and yelling, but constructive criticism from people. You know, we all know people in our lives that don't welcome criticism in any form. Are you aware of your own biases and preconceptions? It's not even saying don't have. Now think about this. Are you aware of your own biases and preconceptions versus eliminate your biases and preconceptions? So think about how fundamental that is. It's not saying that you even have to become a more righteous thinker or a more moralistic thinker. We would hope that you would be throughout this development, but it's not saying you must, it's just saying that you're aware, because everybody has biases and or preconceptions. Everybody holds some bias or preconception. So are you aware of them? Are you aware of enough to then form independent opinions? Most people, they don't have these kind of thoughts. Now, I think that you could certainly say that a criticism of the way that I presented this is that, oh, you know, Dr. Batchelor, you just want me to be this kind of granola crunching, hippie, you know, open-minded. But in my professional life, I've been lucky to work with a lot of really successful, intelligent people. So much so, and you know, I'm interested in this topic, so I really looked at my career as kind of like, I'm going to spy on these people. I've been around these successful people. I'm going to spy on them. I'm going to try to figure out what's the consistency here. What are the underlying traits? And there are 2 that I've always found, and they're interrelated. One is that really successful people are intellectually curious. And by that I mean they love learning, and they want to learn everything. They want to learn interesting new things all the time. And it's related to critical thinking. These people are all strong critical thinkers. So you can see how would these 2 things be related. When they make chili, they put the stuff that we make in, but they're also willing to, I might just use Tabasco. This person's willing to use, you know, chopped up jalapenos and special spices that are going to make the chili even hotter. Okay, I might know about this kind of bean. They're going to take a flyer on this other kind of thing that we didn't even, you know, that I didn't even consider. These are, you know, people that are intellectually curious. Their intellectual curiosity feeds into their critical thinking because they want to be courageous and passionate. They want to be aware. So by doing that, they're sucking in, like vacuum cleaners, all the knowledge they can get. I was around venture capitalists in Silicon Valley, and some of these people are exceptionally intelligent. And they may know a lot about physics, but they wanted to be able to apply physics and marketing and other leadership to the idea of how you form a startup corporation and then take that global. And they're pulling in ideas from physics, they're pulling in philosophy, they're pulling in leadership ideas from Aristotle. And it's just automatic, because they're like vacuum cleaners, sucking up all the knowledge that they can, talking to people and sucking out their knowledge. I mean, just never being satisfied with knowing this little sliver that's just going to give me kind of a normal life. Always wanting more. So to me, critical thinking and intellectual curiosity have consistently been the defining traits of the successful people that I've been around. And, you know, I try to mimic that myself in my own life because, you know, I want to consider myself successful, and so I mimic those kind of traits. You know, we can go down this list and see people in our lives that we wish they had these. You know, I wish that people were more aware of their own biases, because maybe if they were more aware, they would change. I hear people around this building, I hear people in my daily life be casually racist, casually sexist. They say things like, instead of calling a woman, they call her a girl. And they don't even know they're doing it, just casually telling a joke that's off color in a situation that it's not warranted. Okay? These kind of little things may not bug you. I mean, you could be in a situation where you just say, well, that's just that person. But that doesn't have to be the case. You know, we are not going to change anything about the way people act or the way people think if we're not, you know, do we have independent opinions and are we not afraid to disagree? I had a class last year. Was it last year? Last year, a couple of years ago, I can't remember. Somebody used the word retarded for stupid. Now, some people might let that slide. I didn't let it slide. I'm an authority figure in the classroom. So I said, you know, really? You know, let's deconstruct that. You know, let's think about what you just said. Retarded and stupid don't equate. Okay? And you see that all the time, and with a lot worse kind of names. You don't have to let that slide. That kind of thing, educated people should not be making those kind of analogies. So there are, I think, societal aspects to this. And I think that if you think about critical thinking in a really kind of detailed way, it can make you a better person and have a better life. I'll leave you on this and then I'll see if you have any questions. I think this is so important. I think this Bloom's taxonomy is so important that I've been telling people, if I were a student and this were posted on Moodle, this PowerPoint, I would go to this slide, I would print this slide out, I would put it by wherever I study or wherever I think. And I would spend the rest of my college career reflecting on this and how this little chart on one slide could have a major significance in the way that I develop as a thinker, the way that I develop as a human being. Because that's really why we're here. I would reverse them. You're here to become a better human being. I mean, hopefully in that process you'll become a better thinker, and those two rolled together will help you have a better life. So, any questions, any thoughts? Okay, I'll see you next week.
You said that will be posted on Moodle?
I will. Yeah, I haven't posted it yet,
Okay.
but I will. So why the video camera? Because I found that